being trucked there?
Well, that would have been trucking.
Uh-huh.
And we went to Plymouth Harbor, and we unloaded, and I remember getting on the boat, and I remember staying there for a couple of weeks. I remember thinking we were going to leave on the 5th or the 4th, whenever it was, and turn around and coming back. But I remember that everybody on the boat played cards but me, and there's an awful lot of money laying around on the floor, and I was just wondering what was going to happen to that money. And we knew we were waiting on the invasion.
Mm.
We knew that sooner or later we'd be on our way to France. But nobody seemed to be nervous, nobody seemed to be scared, everybody seemed to be enjoying their money, that they were winning or losing. But that was for about 2 weeks.
While you're waiting until you actually did it.
waiting.
And you actually did go out on the night of June 4th to 5th and then come back?
Yeah, I remember we did that. We went out, I don't know, maybe a mile or so, and then the word came around that they'd been canceled. So,
Do you know at any point when you're going out where you're going to land and what your assignment's going to be at this point? No?
No, we don't know anything. We just know that we're on the boat and headed for France.
The next day, what happens?
Well, the next day, and we had to go through the previous day again, getting ready to leave, and not knowing whether we were going to leave or not. And then word came down that we were going. And I remember I was out on deck, and it was about midnight. And the next day, we were well underway, and when we got to France, all you could see was smoke, and you could see how crowded the beach was. You could look around right, left, any way you wanted to look, and you'd see thousands of ships. They had these big balloon-like things, and I never did find out what they were for until later on, but they were to keep German planes from strafing down on the ships. So I remember everybody loading into an LCVP, and that's when the seasick, everybody got seasick. We had to drive right around in circles because we couldn't get on the beach. Things didn't go the way they were planned.
When you got on the LCVP, did you climb down netting on the ship to get on it?
Yes.
Yeah, did you?
Yeah.
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 And when you're a 60 millimeter mortar man, are you carrying that stuff on your shoulders?
Well, see, what I carried was 5 rounds of ammunition.
Okay.
Somebody else carried the base plate.
Oh, okay.
Somebody else carried the tube.
And what 5 rounds of ammunition? What's a round? What does that look like?
It's about 7-8 inches and maybe 1.5 inches in diameter.
Mm-hmm.
It's not big at all, but it's supposed to be one of the best weapons in the war, as far as we're concerned.
And the mortar would go out, you fire it and shoot it off, right? Is that how it would work?
The gunner would do the leveling and the distance and everything like that. The ammunition carrier would hand around to the assistant gunner.
Mm-hmm.
He would drop it in the tube, and then it would go up and out. Sometimes they just go up 100, 200 yards. Sometimes they go 400, 500 yards. That was the beauty of the 60 millimeter. They could be set to accomplish a lot more, like close in or way out.
Or you get calls from up at the front line saying we need mortar here, or you need they would direct you to where you wanted to shoot it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Sometimes one of our group would be out on observation, and they'd radio back up 20 degrees left 20 degrees or whatever, zeroing in.
And off you would go. Now, when you get onto the LCV, what time of day do you get onto that LCVP on June 6th? Do you remember?
Well, I don't remember the time, but it was an early morning.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it was.
Yeah. See, the first wave went in at 6:30. We were supposed to go in at 11. So before 11 o'clock, we had to be in the LCVP because, you know, you get in it and you're bouncing around, you're riding in circles, and you're getting seasick.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say we got on at about 9 o'clock.
Are they telling you what beach you're going to land on this LCVP? Anything?
No, they
Nope. All right. So eventually, what happens?
Well, let's see, we went circled, everybody was throwing up,
Mm-hmm.
everybody was sick, and finally about 5 o'clock, we made it to within 10 yards of the shoreline, and that's when first time I could really be extremely frightened. I was mostly scared that I couldn't swim and I was going to be in the water, and you could see people that hadn't made it. You could see equipment floating around on the water. So that's the way that we got into the water, and thank gosh, it was only about 3 feet of water, and we could walk to shore, but you had to worry about where you're going to get hit, rifle bullets kicking up the sand, explosions going off to the right and left. And the main objective was to get to the hill. We thought that would be protection, and it was. If you could get to the hillside, and then everybody's unloaded and going back, and when we got halfway up the hill, we didn't move again for another hour, I imagine. And then we finally, about dark, we got to the top of the hill, and there was a lot of fighting going on, but they never did call for the mortars. I don't know whether they didn't need them or the fighting was different or not.
How organized is it as you're coming in? Do you have you have a company commander for the company? Are you responding to his orders? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, our company commander, he knows what the objective is. He has a map, and he just relays the message down from company commander down to platoon leaders, squad leaders. Mm-hmm. Everybody's supposed to be organized, but you know that's not the case in the landing. Yeah. Nobody was organized. Everybody was disorganized. Everybody was landing at the wrong place. Mm-hmm. It was pretty fouled up, but a lot of brave men made it ashore and took out some of the pillboxes. And the more people we could land, the more people we got on the beach, the better off we were, but the more people was getting killed. But I give the leadership credit. I think in our case, we had a great captain, we had great sergeants.
The captain would have been your company commander?
Yes.
Okay. Now, by the end of June 6th, that night, where are you physically?
Top of the hill. We're on level ground, top of the hill, and we're pinned down by sniper fire.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Now, welcome to the war. What's it like to get off a boat to come on that beach? Now, they were actually firing on you as you were coming in on the beach. There was some. It really hadn't been even secured by 5 that night. There were still bullets coming down in your area.
Oh yeah, there was still a war going on. It just wasn't the massacre that had been all day. But
sniper fire? At the top?
Mostly it was machine gun fire. The snipers, they were there, but they weren't the big thing. The machine guns were what? When we came in, machine gun fire, occasional artillery was the main thing to worry about.
when you got to the top of the hill, about what draw were you at? Where was this?
I think we were at 3, which is about halfway down from St. Lawrence, Semur. That's where the 29th went in. So we were next to the 29th, moving north, I guess.
And you sniper fire? Was it dark? Was it light out? What do you remember?
It was getting dark. The thing I remember about it getting dark was 2 big planes, the Luftwaffe, Messerschmitt 108s came over, and all the guns on all the ships at sea were fired at them. That was a beautiful sight, because it was dark enough that you could see the tracer bullets, and the tracer bullets is just their 5th or 6th bullet. So it was quite a display.
What's your first thought when you come in and there are live bullets coming at you, or a sniper shooting at you? Did you realize you'd made a transition into combat?
I personally don't think that I would let myself think like that.
Okay, why?
Well, because I felt like more secure if I was thinking about my family, loving my family. I never thought about something was going to happen to me. And I give my dad credit for that, because he was a religious man, and his final words before I left was, "If we believe that you'll come back, you'll come back." So I don't think that I ever really worried about, I worried about the guys around me more than I did myself. Because I remember one guy, when we were at the top of the hill, he was about to go nuts because he'd lost his gun. He didn't have a gun. So I went over and took a gun off of somebody that would never use it again and gave it to him, and that seemed to help him. But he was scared, very much so.
Take me through the next couple of days. What's happening with your unit? Where are you going?
Well, the thing I remember about them, one regiment went off to the left to Colville-sur-Mer. Another regiment might have gone off to the right. And we were coming in the middle. And our objective was down in the neighborhood of Bayeux. And then the whole division's objective was Caen, 20 miles inland. Caen was on the main highway to St. Lo and Caen.
Okay.
And it was a big plus to have it captured. So we fought little battles at little towns between the beach and Caen.
Sam, give me a typical day. I mean, what are you doing? You're moving along. What's happening? What are you with this 60 millimeter mortar group? What are you experiencing?
Well, what's happening is that you're, well, what's my word? You're fixed in. You try to dig a hole. You stop for a few minutes, and then you hear the command moving out, and then you move out, and then you hear rifle fire, and then you hear a machine gun, and then you hold up again. And in my case, they always called for Sergeant Beam, because he seemed to be the one that they relied on if we were bogged down. So then I can remember that early the next morning they called for mortar fire, and we were within 300 yards of the Germans, and they were bivouacked in a house,
The Germans.
farmhouse. So we fired on the house for several rounds, and then the infantry closed in on the house when we saturated it with 60 millimeter mortar shells, and the Germans had slipped out during the night. Yeah. So it was that was away for 2 weeks anyhow. It was just night after night.
Are you able to see the enemy? Do you ever really see the enemy yourself?
Only ones I saw was they had their hands up.
Good. That's a good way to see the enemy.
Yeah.
What are you experiencing from the enemy yourself? What do you experience? Sniper fire? Return mortar fire?
No, here's the way the Germans worked. If you took the area they were in, they would give it up. Not reluctantly, they would give it up. They would draw back. And then they knew where you were, and they would counterattack. That was their system. They'd let you take it, and then they'd counterattack because they knew where to go. And that's the way it was in the little towns all the way to Caen.
What do you do at night? How do you dig in?
Well, you got a little shovel.
Yeah.
And you just find a quick spot wherever you're standing. You start digging. And you dig a hole. And sometimes there's your buddy. You got a buddy that's digging the hole with you. But in the case of going from the Omaha Beach to Caen, you didn't dig many holes.
Why?
Because you didn't have time. You were on the go. You were moving out. You're digging in, moving out, digging in and moving out. That's the way it was.
What's the weather like?
Good. Weather was good. It was warm. And sometimes at night it got real cold. But we're talking about midnight, 2 or 3 o'clock.
Are you in a foxhole at that point? You dig into a foxhole?
It depends on if you've reached your objective. The way the infantry works is in front of you is a battalion or 2.
Okay.
And you're behind them.
Okay.
Okay, they've been in the battle for 2 or 3 days. So you go through them and relieve them, and you have to do their fighting. So many times we go through the other regiment or the other battalions and end up doing the fighting, and they're behind getting and what little rest they can get, and then they come through us. Just all the way. 1st Division, the entire division took Caen. That was a fixed bayonet attack on the town. Only time in the war that I had to fix bayonet. And you can see, Caen was on a little hill. You can see tracer bullets coming, and you know that they're just every 5th one's a tracer, the rest of them are firepower. And then all of a sudden you're in the town, fixed bayonets, afraid somebody's going to jump out and you're going to have to do something you've never been trained to do. And then they're gone. They go back, they retreat. And then everything's quiet for an hour, and you're trying to dig in the town. And then all of a sudden, all these shells start coming in. The Germans know where you are. They know where you've dug in. They know where the best places are. So they're coming back at you with shell fire. And then you either got to take it or go wipe it out. And that calls for a patrol. And you got maybe 6 or 8 men that go out and try to knock out a piece of artillery equipment. But that's the way it went.
That's the way it went, huh?
Yeah.
And you made it. You got the objective. You got Caen.
Yeah.
And you took part in that. You were moving yourself.
Oh, yeah.
How many days did it take to get to Caen?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of there wasn't a lot of hedgerow fighting in your area, right?
No, not in my section.
Not in your section. You're going along main roads?
Yeah, but we were little towns, one right after the other.
And the Germans would give it up, retreat, fire back in. After a while, you knew what was coming.
Yeah.
You knew how.
We knew that every time we took a town easily, that it was going to be German counterfire coming at us.
And how do you protect yourself from that counterfire?
If you can't dig in, you just hope.
Really?
Yeah. But you try to dig in. The safest thing to do is to get a cover with foxholes.
Hmm.
Yeah.
How do you eat? How are you eating during that time? What are you eating? Do you remember?
Well, very little.
Mm-hmm.
First few days you don't eat anything.
Mm-hmm.
Then they give you a chocolate bar of candy, K ration. Then later on you might be lucky and get a can of beans. But you just eat it when you can.
Mm-hmm.
And you sleep when you can. That's another thing about being in a forced march and on the attack. I have fallen asleep walking lots of times. Yeah, because you've been on the go for maybe 20 hours, and first thing you know, you're stretched out, you sleep. Then you get up, somebody pulls you up, and you keep going. Yeah.
So you're moving along. You go. How do you go to the bathroom?
Well, they have what they call slit trenches. That's the first thing that the group of people will do. They'll dig a ditch, maybe 10 yards long, and that's where they go, off to the side a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. I've heard of putting toilet paper in your helmet. You're carrying anything with you? You just do the best you can, huh?
I don't remember carrying it in my helmet.
Some people told me. I've talked to one guy who said he put it in his helmet.
Well, that would be a good place to put it.
Yeah. So slit trenches are for one thing. Your K rations. You have your canteen with water.
Canteen. You have water in your canteen.
Yeah. How are you communicating? Is there much of a need for you to communicate with your fellow troops? Is it just you and your squad that's there?
Well, I didn't have to worry about that. Now, in the weapons platoon, you have a sergeant.
Mm-hmm.
He's in charge of all the weapons platoon. And then within the platoon or the squads, you have a corporal. He's in charge of that corporal. So, or a sergeant.
Mm-hmm.
So in my case, there's a gunner. He's probably a sergeant. And then there's an assistant gunner, and he can be a corporal. And then there's the ammunition carriers, which are just plain privates. The corporals get their information from the platoon leaders. Platoon leaders get their information from the officers.
Mm-hmm.
And for every platoon, there's a lieutenant.
Mm-hmm.
Could be a captain, but mostly it's a lieutenant. And then from there, you jump to the captains of the company. It's just a chain of command.
Chain of command.
Yeah.
And they communicate down that way. You're moving on. You get through Caen. What happens next?
Well, we're there for 30 days
In Caen?
in Caen.
Why?
Well, because Caen was the furthest penetration of all the Allied troops. And on Caen, from Caen to St. Lo is a major highway.
Mm-hmm.
And whoever controls Caen controls that highway. And whoever that can will control the highway, and that was the biggest thing. We fought off time after time after time. We fought off counterattacks.
Oh, you're fighting.
Yeah, because Germans wanted that road, and we wanted that road. So whoever fought the best, I guess, kept the road, and that was our job.
So you're okay? You're in Caen at this point,
Yes.
and where are you staying in Caen?
In the field.
In the field.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're in the field. You dug in.
Dug in, yeah.
You do the
That's
best
the first thing you do is dig in.
Now, when you're in the field, are you trying to find a place where it's sort of protected, or are you just out there? Are you in a field?
No, you let the officers and the company commanders and everybody have the good places, and you stay out in the field, because that's the only way you can do it. The leaders have got to be where they can operate.
I got it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're actually in the field. You're like in a farm field. Is that where you are?
Yeah,
in
exactly.
Caen?
But then in Caen, you're looking at hedgerows.
All right, that's another question. Okay, are you able to dig up next to a hedgerow?
Am I what?
Do you dig in next to a hedgerow yourself? Do you try to get close to the hedgerow to protect yourself?
Well, I don't know about that.
Okay.
Just wherever you are is where you dig in.
All right.
Mm-hmm. See, now, one thing about being in the in the 60mm mortars, and I've always appreciated this fact. To my left, I got a rifle platoon. To my right, I've got a rifle platoon. And ahead of me, I got a rifle platoon. So that's a little bit of a security blanket, having those people, riflemen, on your rights and lefts and in front of you.
So when you're in a squad, in your platoon is a mortar platoon,
Yes,
and you've got and for the four, you got three other rifle platoons with you,
yes,
all part of the same company,
yes,
and that's good. That's the way they set you up. That's the way you're trained to be,
Yeah.
right?
yeah.
And they're all dug in the same way around you and
Yeah,
near you.
they're all out there dug in somewhere. They'll have a few of them on an outpost,
Mm-hmm.
which maybe 6 or 8 guys on the outpost, which is to notify, radio back what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
If it see the Germans coming in a counterattack, well, the people behind you already know that, and they'll tell you whether to withdraw or sit still or what.
You're there in the field for those days, those subsequent days.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and what's happening every day with you? What are you doing?
Well, I remember I learned to shave. I was just 18. I don't remember us, excuse me. I don't remember us doing anything other than trying to sleep, trying to eat, because you don't want to get out of your foxhole. If you get out of your foxhole and shells come in, well, then you're going to get hit. We've had people do that. We had a lieutenant that got killed because he was out of cover. So mainly, I'd say to answer your question, we're doing nothing. You're just waiting on orders to attack, or waiting on orders to withdraw, or just waiting for the Germans to take the first step.
Is it quiet during the day, or are they shelling you?
They're shelling. Shelling's constant.
How do you deal with that?
Well, you just survive it. There's nothing you can do. Yeah.
What does it sound like?
Well, artillery, there's a boom and a blast. When it hits, it throws up smoke. And I guess that's what it sounds like. It's a front. Now, if you're back at the back, way back, you might get a big buzz bomb. And that's, you know what a buzz bomb is?
Tell me that.
Buzz bomb is German's best weapon, mostly going to London.
Oh yeah, the buzz. Okay.
Yeah, but they also used it on the front line.
Oh, they did.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah,
The terror weapon there, like
Yeah.
that.
yeah, and you're scared to death because when it goes off and you don't hear anything, you know that it's coming down. Yeah.
When the shelling took place, that was constant. Was it during the day and the night? We'd shell you day and night.
Most of the day.
Mostly during the day.
At night there was a little plane that came over every night at 11 o'clock, a little
Yeah.
German aircraft,
Yeah.
and we called that bed check Charlie.
Bed check Charlie. Yeah.
Because, and he was just out there to draw fire, if he could. He's out there to find out where you are, and you're not going to tell him. You're not going to let him know, so you leave him alone. But every night of the world, bed check Charlie came out.
Excellent. All right, we're going to continue. We'll end this as the end of part one. We'll come right back in a minute and start part two.
Okay.